It's that time of the year again in London when copious amount of strawberries and cream are consumed, and it's one of the few places in the world where spectators occasionally have to be told off for breaking the silence with the pop of a champagne cork. Of course, I'm talking about the annual Wimbledon Tennis Championships. While the event is brilliantly covered on TV and social media, have you ever wondered what goes on behind the scenes? Well, joining me in the studio is fellow South African Marcel van Wyk, a lawyer in London, a Wimbledon local, and a lifelong sports enthusiast. As a student, he worked at the championships as a player's escort. And yes, he met none other than Roger Federer. Welcome, Marcel, to the bigger picture.
Thank you very much.
So this job of a player's escort, what exactly did you do?
Essentially, because we were crowd control people, we were employed by the security company G4S. And we sometimes, depending on whether it was a really big player or an up-and-coming player, we would be assigned courts where we would go to the players area, escort the players from the from the underground bit into onto their courts so that they can go play, and then we'd go fetch them afterwards. So it was kind of like a nanny for adults, if you want to put it that way.
Well, a nanny, you can't really protect them, can you?
Well, some of the escorts I was working with were quite tall people, so it was more just like an imposing figure dressed as a train conductor, there to help, sort of herd the people like a shepherd.
And I'm just kind of curious, did the players talk to you at all?
So you're specifically instructed when you do your training that you don't speak unless you're spoken to. So they'll be in the zone. A lot of the players, when you pick them up, they'll be either with their headphones on, or they'll just be in the zone or consuming some form of electrolyte before they get to their match. So for the most part, you're not supposed to speak to them. You're not supposed to take photos with them. And that's usually sort of sackable offense.
Oh, so no selfies?
No. Well, there are some people that have done it and have ended up getting the boot the next day. So they're relatively strict, and that the role isn't to interact with people. It's to make sure that you get them to the court in a timely manner. That's the main goal.
So you take them back as well. So you either have a grumpy player that lost or a really happy one.
Yeah. I mean, so usually you're underneath center court, and you're in kind of a holding pen, and you're not necessarily watching the live games. You're just seeing how the games are progressing, and then you usually make your way to the court if there's a game or two left, or it looks like the game will come to an end soon.
So I said in the intro you met Roger Federer. So is that the big one?
Yeah. So that was in 2012 when he won Wimbledon. I had the pleasure of being part of a sort of 6-man escort team, taking him from center court after he won to the media center, where he proceeded to conduct interviews in multiple languages with news outlets from the world.
When you escorted Roger Federer, and you said this was the final that he won, what was it like? Did he talk to you guys then or afterwards?
No, he's quite a measured character, and I don't really think if he had anything important to say, he would just say it to a random person escorting him through a crowd. It would more be reaching out to family members. And I think also the fact that he's been in that position many times before has meant that it's just another day in the office. He's just a consummate professional.
So never Rafa Nadal?
Not personally escorted Rafa, but have been in the just outside the players' changing room, so seeing the players interact with each other, and it's quite nice to see them just as normal humans instead of people who are trying to zone in on really important matches in their career.
So is it good money for a student?
I mean, it's pretty easy money. So you work for 2 weeks, you get lunch breaks where you can go watch tennis, you get fed, and then as a student it was enough during that time to do a bit of traveling throughout Europe.
And what other jobs go around? Because you can't be a ball girl or ball boy. That seems to be local school children.
Yeah, so they're employed directly from local schools in the area. So they prioritize local people, whereas the role I was performing was employed by G4S, a big security company who no longer have the contract, but they had the contract for years, and you would do anything from guarding gates to helping to direct tourists, and then the best role is the player escort.
Okay, and you only get to that kind of role after you've worked there for a couple of years.
Usually, but I mean, I got it in my first year, and that was very lucky. So for the most part, they want physically imposing people, but then they decided to add me in as well.
Okay. Okay, well, you're way too friendly to be intimidating.
Well, all the others were like the size of NBA basketball players. So, generally speaking, that was the brief.
Okay, so it seems like a very intense fortnight. I mean, what is the organization of Wimbledon like? They seem to be really know how to do this.
Well, I think number one, they've been doing it for years, and number two, they employ a lot of staff who perform on the face of menial jobs to make sure that the conditions of the court are perfect and that the hospitality is up to scratch. And I mean, Wimbledon have a lot of support from sponsors, and there's a lot of people that go and just enjoy themselves in the sponsor marquees as opposed to actually watching tennis. It's become a bit of a juggernaut and almost a world in and of itself.
Did you ever witness a player throwing a big old tantrum?
Yeah, it's mainly the juniors because they're there's essentially just teenagers who's just ended up in a really privileged position, and they struggle to control their emotions as well as the senior players.
Although I saw they showed footage of Rublev last year, absolutely losing it and actually hurting himself.
Yeah, but for the most part, I mean, that's not necessarily to do damage to anybody else. It's just managing himself. And apparently he's since taken on a psychologist and has really helped to sort of center himself, because that he can be his own worst enemy on the court, because he's got this mental block where he can't get past the quarterfinals, which is a great achievement in and of itself, but it creates a sort of mental block. So it's good to see that he's seeking other avenues to try and get to the next level.
Well, Wimbledon always pins their hopes is because of all the British people there on the British players. So Raducanu is out, but there's still one Brit left. So is it difficult for other players to play when, the Brits walk onto the court?
I don't think so necessarily. I mean, it ultimately means if you're playing as a British person in the second week of Wimbledon, often you'll be on the show courts. So Cam Norrie is the last guy left with a unique background. So he was born in South Africa, grew up in New Zealand, and has ended up representing GB. So he's former top 10 player, but finding his way back on the way up. But he's up against Carlos Alcaraz next. So that's going to be a tough match for him, and ultimately Alcaraz won't be fazed by a partisan crowd.
So there's a South African link there.
Yeah. So I think his family's from Johannesburg, and then he grew up in New Zealand and then has ended up representing the UK. So he's got quite an international background.
And what happened to the South Africans? There was one South African.
Yeah, Lloyd Harris. He's the sort of flying the flag, apart from the women in the wheelchair, who's got a lot of titles.
Oh yeah, that is KG Mutane.
Lloyd Harris he lost to Andrei Rublev in the second round last week of Wimbledon.
So have you been following this year's tournament? Who do you want to win? Who stands out for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really good tournament. It's been unprecedented with the amount of seeds dropping out in the early weeks, and that's kind of a testament to where men's tennis is at the moment. It's not a case of people underperforming. It's just that as prize money has increased, it's meant that people have better access to nutrition and coaching, and so the difference between a number one in the world and the 100 in the world isn't as big as it used to be. Yeah, it's a pretty exciting tournament. It seems like the Italians are really coming through this year. There's at the moment 9 Italians in the top 100 in the world, so it means that almost 1 in every 10 is Italian, and so that's a country that's definitely going from stride to stride. I'd say that Jannik Sinner and Alcaraz are the clear 2 favorites to really go far in the tournament and maybe meet each other in the final. But then you also have the veteran Djokovic, who's 38 years old, but is still a big threat and is currently playing in the 4th round against Dominoes, who's a very competent Aussie player. So it's been a bit of a giant killer this tournament, but there's still a few heavy hitters. So on the men's side, Sinner or Alcaraz are probably the good chance of winning. And then on the women's side, there's also been lots of seeds dropping out, but Sabalenka's looking really promising to win her first Wimbledon. She never won the tournament before, so should be really good for her.
Yeah, I wonder if Wimbledon forgave her for beating Raducanu.
Yeah, I mean, Raducanu is like, that's actually the best match that she's played for a very long time, because she's been on a coach merry-go-round, and also just experiencing a lot of injuries and other personal issues, like the stalking situation that happened to her. So I actually think she that played very well in that match, and can take a lot of confidence from that going into the rest of the season.
Yeah, see, I heard the stalker, the one that was, that she was really had a breakdown because of the guy pitching up at one of her previous tournaments. He tried to get in yet this year, but Wimbledon blocked it.
It's not only previous tournaments, though. So he was at matches where she played in 3 different countries in the Middle East, and then they proceeded to get a restraining order, and he applied in the public ballot to try and get into Wimbledon, but luckily he was red flagged, and so it was dealt with swiftly. So Wimbledon is showing how to deal with these kinds of issues to ensure player safety.
So do you miss the legends, the Rafa Nadal, Roger Federer, and Djokovic is probably the only one left?
Yeah, he's the only one left. Ultimately, yes, we were very privileged to have a period of dominance in the men's game, but I think it's time for new people to really show their mettle. And I think now we have a new rivalry with Alcaraz and Sinner. I think he's beaten Sinner in the last 5 times he's played him. So, but ultimately Sinner's won the most amount of matches that this year. I think he's won over 45 matches. So should be a really well contested match, and I think tennis is in a really healthy place.
Well, even though Sinner was, had that drug ban for a while, so he's back. So who's the Mr. Nice Guy now? Because I think Alcaraz did a couple of noteworthy things this year.
Yep. I think Alcaraz is probably Mr. Nice Guy. Sinner's maybe still in the doghouse, or some people are still thinking that he got off lucky with getting such a lenient ban to the point where he was able to play the French Open and now Wimbledon. So it's probably Alcaraz as Mr. Nice Guy, and then you've got a few other new characters just sort of establishing themselves in tennis.
Well, you also live in Wimbledon. So what is it like when these hordes of people arrive?
It's good. I mean, Wimbledon's very good at managing crowd control. So there's buses taking people to the tennis from the station. There's taxis, lots of different ways of getting around. So even the local Tesco is decorated to the nines with tennis balls and Wimbledon memorabilia. So there's definitely tennis fever around.
So the locals don't mind?
I think it's part of the charm, and it's only 2 weeks a year, so realistically it's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, if you really wanted to capitalize, people would put their properties on Airbnb and then go on holiday with the proceeds.
Is there any chance you bump into celebrities or anybody that you're quite keen to see?
Not particularly bump into, but obviously every day they invite people into the Royal Box. Like, for example, today there's Joe Root and James Anderson from the England cricket team in there, and there's been a host of celebrities like Brad Pitt, because everybody's excited about his new Formula One movie coming out. And yeah, it's kind of like the Met. It's become like the Met Gala, seeing who's coming in, who's wearing what, and who's coming to see tennis.
Yeah, I know of somebody that worked there and who saw Beyonce and was just absolutely bowled over and could just not stop talking about. And I think Bradley Cooper props up there every now and then as well.
Yep, no, exactly. And Russell Crowe, and yeah, they've it's a tournament with international acclaim, so it's no surprise that there's big celebrities turning up.
But the only problem of Wimbledon is getting in. So there are these queues of people who queue every day, and it's so funny. Some of them even camp out there. So do they eventually get in?
It depends how early you get in. I mean, I think they've been trying their best to increase the amount of tickets for people to come in, but ultimately you don't want it to be too congested. But yeah, the general protocol is just to turn up at 5-6 o'clock in the morning, and then hope that you get in when the gates open at 11 o'clock every day.
Marcel van Wyk, thanks so much for talking to us.
No worries. Thank you very much.